G'day guys, in this video series I'm going to be talking to you about the World Team Championships of Warhammer 40k from the perspective of the captain of and World Eaters player for Team Australia. We're going to dig into the preparation for the event, how that all went down and what our team strategy was. We're going to dig into the War Masters singles event, we're going to talk about my list in detail, and we're also going to break down every round, every game that we played into every other opponent from nations all around the world. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the World Team Championships and Team Australia, this video series is for you. Let's get into it.
Look for the blood god.
G'day guys, and welcome to this next video in my WTC recap series. Today we're going to be talking about the finals. So this is the final day. Team Australia is going in, currently placed second overall, and we've got some really intense competition ahead of us to see whether or not we can actually win this thing. Team Australia is in a position where we could, if we perform well on these next two games, we could win the WTC. So energy is absolutely ecstatic. We're all through the roof, happy, excited, feeling confident and powerful. Let's see how that pans out for us in the rounds into the finals. It's worth noting at this stage that my list has started to show some cracks around the edges because we're playing against really top tier players that know how to isolate the weaknesses of a list and take advantage of it. So we're going to go through that in detail. We're going to talk about the total lineup and who played into who performed well and how the team performed overall. And we're going to break down in detail my games into France and into Poland. So with that being said, let's just jump straight into France. So this is who we played against in the first round of the finals on day 5 of the WTC. All right, so I've got the results up here. France got a 106-point win into Australia's 54-point loss. So a pretty crushing loss for Team Australia, unfortunately. So we've got Jordan Beresford. He got a 5-point loss with his Space Wolves into the Chaos Space Marines. We've got Josh Brody. He got a 6-point loss with his Necrons into their Thousand Suns. We've got Matt Morosoli. Got a 7-point loss with his Chaos Space Marines into their Necrons. Jeremy Martino got a 12-point win with his Thousand Suns into their Grey Knights. Reese Cunningham got a 0-point loss into their Black Templars. I got a 0-point loss into their Astra Militarum. Lockie Rigg got a 15-point win into their with his Grey Knights into their Eldari. And Callum German got a 9-point loss with his Tau Empire into their Death Guard. So as you can see, lots of losses for Team Australia here. France were very much firing on all pistons. They were doing very well, and they were able to bring that to bear. We had a few lists of theirs that we were particularly concerned about. Things like their Black Templars list. Nobody on our team wanted to verse that. It was absolutely brutal. Nobody really wanted to verse their Chaos Space Marines either. They had a whole bunch of tanks and things like that. Really interesting lists. But let's talk about my matchup. So where am I? I'm down here. So my World Eaters into their Astra Militarum. Now it's worth noting at this point that I had versed Astra Militarum previously in the event, and I got a 12-point win and a 20-point win. So it was looking like I was really good into Astra Militarum. So what we did is we put me up, and then they put in their Astra Militarum, and we selected it, right? Now, in retrospect, this was a mistake, and we'll go through that in a moment. But the list was very different to what I had versed previously in some really significant ways. So let's pull up the list and have a look at it. Alright, so this is the list that I versed. So, Astra Militarum had a Tempestus Command Squad, he had a Platoon Command Squad, he had Leontus, and he had Ursula Creed. Then he had 3 units of Catachan Jungle Fighters, 3 big units of Bulgrin, he had an Earthshaker Carriage, he had 5 Tempestus Scions, he had a Basilisk, and then he had 2 Rogel Dawns, a Scout Sentinel, a Chimera, and a Taurox. So a very different list than what we'd versed previously. The main takeaways from this was that he has lots of infantry, lots and lots of infantry units, lots of Bulgrin, and Rogel Dawns, which are an absolute monster of a unit. So this list was very different than what I'd played previously in some really significant ways. So basically, I had the table pick, and this game is on stream. If you want to check out the War Games French Wargaming YouTube channel, I think it's on Twitch actually. The stream game. I'll see if I can find it. If I can, I'll pop a link in the description. But basically, I got the table pick, and I picked one where there was big ruins that I could hide in, right? And then basically deployed 2 units of Terminators, had 1 in Deep Strike. And the reason I did this is because I knew that he had the fast scouting Catachan units. He'd be able to fan out around the board. I didn't want him to be able to prevent me from deep striking where I wanted to. So I was like, I'm going to deploy 2, deep strike 1, and I'm going to sit in this ruin where I can threaten all the objectives. This was the mission, I think it's called the Ritual, where you can spawn objectives. And basically, he was able to spawn 3 objectives along his deployment zone. So there's the one in the center. He's able to spawn 1 straight back from there, and then another 2 off the side, and hold them with stuff all game long. And what he was able to do to prevent me from ever going out and taking them is use his infantry units to block my Terminators in the ruins that they were in. So he wasn't shooting me, he wasn't charging me, he was barely engaging with me at all. What he was doing was he was basically just putting a big line of infantry blocking me in, and now in order for those Terminators to go out and hit his Bullgrin, they have to go all the way around. And then he hit them with the Basilisks and the Earthshaker carriage, which would neg 2 to my movement, advances, and charge rolls, which meant those Terminators are way too slow. So they're just never getting around. And if I came out and just hit them where they were, I'd kill them, but then my Terminators are in the open, and the Rogal Dawns would just light them up. So as a result, the Terminators spent a lot of the game just being just nothing, and like I'd send 5 Khorne Berserkers out to kill that screen, but then he'd send more guys to box them in again. And he basically repeated that for enough turns that he was able to push those Bullgrin up into positions where in my turn I'd come out to kill him, but then he'd be able to collapse on me with all of his Bullgrin. And I'd thought about the Bullgrin versus Terminator fight a bit, and I thought to myself, well, the Bullgrin are neg 1 damage inbuilt, so the Terminators are not amazing at killing them. But when he goes to hit me, I can reactively put neg 1 damage on, so he's not great at killing me, and he's only AP 1, so I'm going to get 3-up saves against all this sort of stuff. So I'm like, the Bullgrin really don't kill me very well. However, that doesn't work if he engages me in multiple places at once, because I can only reactively neg 1 damage one of my units, whereas his neg 1 damage is on all of them. So there was one turn where basically I basically played cagey all game. One of the mistakes that I made was in his first turn, he moved a unit of infantry up, but they weren't on any objectives, right? So then in my first turn, I've gone, well, I could send 5 Berserkers out and kill that infantry unit, but I'm like, but none of my cards require me to kill that unit, and it's not on any objectives, so it's not going to score him any primary. So I'm like, so I actually really gain nothing from killing that unit. So do I really want to sacrifice a unit of Khorne Berserkers to kill something that gives me nothing? And I thought to myself, no, I don't want to do that. I'd rather keep my little 5-man Berserker unit and trade it for something later. But the problem with that is then in his next turn, he was able to move that one up again, use the move order on it, and advance it, and create this big bubble and block in all my stuff. And I was like, oh no, that's what that unit was there for. So really, really masterfully played by him, because if he had put it on an objective, I would have come out and killed it, you know. So, or if so, and luckily for him, I didn't draw like no prisoners or anything like that, because otherwise I would have gone and killed it. So yeah, as a result, he was able to use that to block me in, and I wasn't able to get where I wanted to do and do what I wanted to do. So I played cagey for the first couple of turns, just trying to break out of these roadblocks that he'd set up for me, throwing jackals into his infantry and things like that. Then on that turn 3, I've gone, yep, I have to come out now. So I've come out, I've charged like a Chimera over here, a Taurox over here, a Sentinel over here with Terminators. Khan's units come out, killed some Bullgrin, done all this stuff. But then in his turn, he was able to just go, cool. The Dawns, the Basilisks, the remaining Bullgrin, the remaining Scions, everything goes in and shoots. And in one turn, he killed like 27 Terminators. Like there was 1 left in that unit, 2 left in that unit, and the other unit was gone. And I was just like, holy crap. Those Dawns have so much 3 damage shooting that, and I didn't roll any 6-up Feel No Pains. There's, I'll see if I can dig up the photo. I've got a photo of a dice roll that I made when it was, rolling my invulnerable saves and I just rolled like 12 dice and I didn't roll a single 4. And it was just like dead. Dead. That's a whole Terminator unit's just gone. It was wild, and he was rolling with his blasts. He's got like D6 shots with blast. It's like D6 plus 3 blast, so he'd roll 6, but then he'd get an extra 2 and another 3, so he'd roll like an 11 shots. He'd get all hits, all wounds. I know it sounds like I'm complaining about the dice here. I will fully accept that I misplayed this matchup, and I also underestimated this matchup, but I also feel that I got diced. And I think those 3 things combining is what's resulted in me getting 0 points. If I had have not got diced, I probably would have got like 5 points. Or if I had have not misplayed, I might have got 5 points. Or if I had have, not underestimated the list, I might have got more points. But all of those things happening together is what caused me to just get absolutely crushed by this list, which was a really disappointing start to the finals. But at this point, I've looked across and I've got, our coaches are running around updating everybody, and it was like everybody's going down. So I feel like I didn't cost us the round. The fact that everybody was going down made my loss feel less bad. It stung less because, when I look across and Reese Cunningham's getting a 0, and it's like, well, if Reese is getting fucking 0, like, clearly the French people know what they're doing. Because, Reese is one of the best players in Australia. He never gets 0, So seeing him go down that hard, it's like, okay, these guys have done their homework. They've prepared. And last night, while we were out, in relaxing and celebrating and all that, they were probably back at their hotel studying our lists, coming up with a game plan, talking through the nuances. So yeah, the wheels have definitely come off the wagon at this point, and the French team beat us. However, this is the first team to beat us, and it is, spoiler alert, the team that went on to win the event. So when the only team that beat you is the team that wins the event, that feels pretty good. It makes you feel like you're a contender for that title spot. So yeah, really, really exciting match into Team France. But however, Team Australia did go down, and we went down pretty hard. So we were thinking, okay, that's okay. We've gone down so hard. The next person that we get paired into is probably going to be one of those sort of middle tier teams. It's not going to be a rock star team because we've got a draw and a loss now. So we're probably going to play into somebody else that's got a draw and a loss and is, underperforming and is not a super strong team. Was what we thought. However, pairings go live, and we got paired into Team Poland. And Team Poland, for those of you playing along at home, are the people who won last year. So we've just lost into the people who are going to win this year, and we're about to play into the people who won last year. So we got a really hard run here at the end of the event. I think the fact that we had performed so well up until this point basically locked us into having to verse really hard opponents. Whereas, the other teams out there that might have got their losses earlier on were able to dodge the hard opponents in the tail end of the event. So we got paired into Poland, and let's pull up their results now and have a look at how that panned out. Alright, so here's the results from Australia versus Poland. We got a 59-point loss into their 101-point win. So a big win for Poland, a well-deserved win. They performed really, really well. We had Lockie Brigg on his Grey Knights played into their Space Wolves, and he got 0. He got absolutely crushed by the Wolves. Then we had Reese, his Adeptus Sororitas, got a 6-point loss into their Grey Knights, another disappointing loss. I played into Adeptus Mechanicus with Michael Duda, and I got a 10-point draw, which I was actually pretty happy with, having never played against Admech before, and we'll go through that in a moment. Josh Brody got an 8-point loss with his Necrons into their Custodes. Callum German got an 11-point win with his Tau Empire into their Chaos Space Marines. Matt Morrisoli got a 10-point draw with his Chaos Space Marines into their Adeptus Sororitas. Jeremy Martino got an 11-point win with his Thousand Sons into their Necrons. And Jordan Beresford got a 3-point loss with his Space Wolves into their Thousand Sons. So, overall, some disappointing blowouts there. Lockie and Jordan both finally, they'd been performing so well for the duration of the event, but they finally got those losses. It finally caught up with them. And then we had Reese getting another loss, which was something that you don't tend to expect from Reese. He's one of the best players in the country, so that was another disappointing result. But overall, we're playing into the champions, right? Like these are the best of the best, and yeah, it was a really exciting opportunity. And I got a draw into Duda, who by all reports is one of their better players, and he was an absolute fantastic opponent. So let's have a look at his list now, and talk about how that went down. Now, I'd never played against Admech before, except for Uprising in January of 2023, I think it was. So it's been a long time since, it might have been January 2024. So it's been, what's that, 7 months since I played against Admech. So I didn't really know what it did, but one of the things that Duda did really, really well was he was very articulate with what his stuff did at the start of the game. He went through everything, every relevant stratagem, every relevant ability. He clearly did not want to play any gotchas, so that was very appreciated. So he had the Skitarii Hunter cohort. He had Belisarius Call. He had 2 Marshals, one with Battlesphere uplink and one with Cantic Thronant. Don't ask me what they do. I don't remember. Then he also had a Techno-Archaeologist. He then had, in his battle line, he had 2 units of Skitarii Vanguard. In his dedicated transports, he had a Dune Rider. Then in his other data sheets, he had 3 units of Ballistari with Cognis Las Cannons. Then he had Skystalkers, which he had, 2 small units and 1 big unit. Then he had Sterilizers, 1 small unit, 2 big units, a unit of Infiltrators, and a unit of Dragoons with Taser Lancers. So they're the combat chickens. So lots of the chickens, some with combat, some with las cannons, and lots of birds, some with the flamers, some with the fleshlight launchers, or whatever the fuck it's called, the fleshlight blaster. So yeah, absolutely ripper of an opponent, this guy, and it was really, really interesting matchup. So basically, I had deployed 2 Terminator units on this one because I knew that he had some fast elements, and I knew that I was basically going to want to come at him. And he just kept throwing these big units of birds, the flappy guys, and creating these big screens that I couldn't get through. However, I was able to trade things like Jackals into them, things like Berserkers into them quite effectively. And I was also able to, this is another reason why Terminators are really good, is because I was able to move the Terminators out and shoot the ones at the back and then charge the ones at the front and do damage to both, which was really, really exciting and good to see. There were a few interesting swings in this game. One of them was he threw the 3 combat chickens onto an objective. I've charged them with a full unit of 10 Terminators, and of the 3 of them, I killed 2.5. So I was like, wow, those things are really tough. He has a reactive 5-up Feel No Pain stratagem that makes them really, really tough to kill. So I killed 2.5, so there's 1 left with 4 wounds remaining. And then in his turn, he fell back. He could fall back and charge with them, I believe. So he's fallen back and gone to charge some Jackals, and then he's put a bunch of shooting and stuff into those Terminators. But I did it so that most of those Terminators were on the other side of a wall, out of line of sight. So he's fallen back and gone to charge in his turn with that single chicken into some Jackals. And before he's done it, he's like, what's the chances of those Jackals killing that thing? And I'm like, well, given that it took 10 Terminators to kill 2 of them, I don't think a Jackal's going to kill another one. And I'm like, he's like, well, let's talk about it. I'm like, okay, cool. So let's talk about it. I'm like, well, I'm hitting you on 4s. I have no access to reroll hits, so I'm hitting you on 4s. There's only really 2 weapons in the unit you need to worry about that are the 2 damage weapons. One of them's hitting you on 4s with 4 attacks, and it's wounding you on 6s, and then you're going to get an armor save against it, so it probably doesn't do anything. The other one is only 3 attacks, and it's hitting you on 5s, and, wounding you on 5s, or it might have been 6s. But I was like, either way, like we talked it out, and he's like, oh yeah, no, you're right. There's no way you kill me. So he charges in, he fights, kills like 4 Jackals. Then I pile him with a Skull Smasher guy, and I'm like, yep, 4 attacks, 4 hits. Rolling to wound, wounding on 6s, 3 6s out of my 4 dice. And then he's like, uh-oh, and he rolls his saves. He's got like 4 up saves against it, and he rolls 2 ones and dies. And he's like, wow. And you could see he was a little mad. I don't think he was mad at me because like we clearly went through the numbers. But it was an unexpected and upsetting moment for him. The other one was Khan soloing Belisarius Call. So basically, he had all these things strung out. His Skitarii units that can jump in and out of transports and stuff. He had all that sort of stuff lined up in the middle. And I basically threw Khan in and I'm like, yep, all the Berserkers are going to hit this unit of sterilizers. Khan and the 2 big axes, the Eviscerators, they're going to go into Belisarius Call. And then the 2 big axes went in and did nothing. And I was like, oh no, this is a problem. The Berserkers picked up the sterilizers. And then Khan just went mental and was like, everything hits, everything wounds, fails a bunch of saves, and killed Belisarius Call. I don't think everything wounded, but most of it wounded. And being 3 damage, he was able to put in the work. And he actually killed Call. So that was another moment where my opponent was like, well, that shouldn't have happened. So I got quite lucky on the dice there. So there was a few instances in the game where I got lucky on dice. I think there were a few where he did as well. So I think it more or less came out in the wash. And the other one was Blood Surge moves. Once I'd done that with the Berserkers and killed a whole bunch of stuff in the middle, he was just like, I can kill those Berserkers, but it's going to take 3 or 4 units to do it. And then I'm just going to Blood Surge into him. So he's just like, I guess I just don't shoot them at all. I think I just let them live. And then in the next turn, Khan's Berserker unit was able to jump out and do even more damage and kill a bunch more stuff. So that was really, really interesting, the way that sort of all panned out. Khan's unit was the MVP. The Terminators did well, and the Terminators tanked a lot. There was one point where there was a Terminator unit in the middle of the board, and he fired his entire army into it and killed it down to 1 guy left. And then in my turn, I spent the CP to auto-pass his morale, so I sticky the objective, or I control the objective. And then that same turn, I got area denial and established locus. So I was like, yep, this Terminator is going to establish locus, and then this other unit of Terminators is going to shoot that unit of infiltrators off the objective. So now I get my area denial and my established locus. So there's a few moments like that where just the raw durability of those Terminators shone. Whereas if that was 6-8 bound, they would have all died. But the fact that he killed 9 Terminators and I still had that 1 guy left just goes to show that the durability of those Terminators is absolutely critical. Because if that 1 Terminator had died, I wouldn't have got the objective, I wouldn't have been able to get area denial, and I wouldn't have been able to get established locus. Because the rest of my army was sort of fanned out around no man's land. None of it would have been able to get into the center, and as a result, he would have got like a 12-point swing or something like that. Like some ridiculous amount of points was tied up into that 1 Terminator. So again, it's another showcase for the Terminators being exceptionally powerful. They were vulnerable to his move blocking, which was annoying. Like he kept basically putting all this stuff with his chickens behind it and his vanguard behind it and all the sterilizers and the Skystalkers in front. And basically I was just trading into those the whole time, which was annoying. But at the end of the day, if he wasn't able to push through those Terminators and actually brick the units, meant that I was able to get the victory points that I needed to do in order to bring this into a draw. And pretty happy with that, given that I haven't played AdMech in so long. I didn't really know what any of it did. I didn't have a really solid game plan going into it. Whereas a lot of the previous games, I was like, yep, this is what he's going to do. This is what I'm going to do. I've planned the game out in my head before dice hit the table. And then it's just a matter of execution. Whereas this was very scrappy. It was very, I have no idea what you're going to do. I'm just going to react to everything that you do. And based on the game state, I'm going to make whatever I think is the best decision at the time, with no game plan going into it. And just the raw power of those data sheets was able to bring me through and get the draw. So really happy with my results there into Duda from Poland. Managed to do a shirt swap with him, which are really, really cool Poland t-shirts. So that's always a really great way of showing your respect and camaraderie with your opponent. Is you're like, you know what, we had a great game, let's swap shirts. And now, when I'm going to random GTs around here, I'll be rocking a Duda Poland shirt. And, it's a really great memento and memory from the event. So, that rounds out our round into Poland with a pretty devastating loss for Team Australia. But it also rounds out my personal performance as well with a draw, which means I'm now on 3 wins, 3 losses, and a draw, which, is what it is. So that rounds out this video. The next video is going to be a recap where we're basically going to talk about Team Australia's performance overall, my performance overall, things that I would do differently, and what our plans are for 2025. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I hope you're enjoying this series. And yeah, I look forward to keeping you guys up to date throughout. If you want to learn a little bit more about Team Australia, head over to Team Australia. It's teamoz40k.com. Where you can learn a little bit more about the team, about historic events of the team and that sort of stuff, and also learn a little bit more about 2025 and our plans going forward. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the antics and the fun that Australia got up to whilst over there, check out the Risky Rollers on YouTube. They have a vlog series going through all of the antics outside of the event. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the rounds, then we also have the live streams over on our Facebook page. So there's plenty of ways that you can engage with Team Australia. I hope to see you there. And thanks again for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.
One for the blood god.